Weddings. People call them fairy tales. Dresses, flowers, champagne, dancing. Promises of forever. But what if forever is built on a lie? What if the smiles hide heartbreak? Today's story is one of those moments where truth crashes into fantasy. And the one who brought the truth wasn't a grown-up, wasn't a jaded ex, wasn't even a best friend. It was a 14-year-old boy standing up at his father's wedding. And what he said, well, it didn't just end the wedding. It changed every single life in that room. Daniel was just 14, but he wasn't blind. Kids see more than adults think. He had watched his family fall apart, piece by piece. His parents' divorce was supposed to be civil. That's what they called it. But to Daniel, it was like watching the walls of his home crack and crumble until there was no safe place left. His mom, Emily, carried her pain quietly, trying to protect him. She smiled at him in the mornings, packed his lunch, helped him with homework. But at night, Daniel would hear muffled sobs from the bedroom. And his dad? His dad was smiling too. But for another reason. You know that kind of smile that's too quick, too easy, like it's hiding something? That was his father's smile. Because not long after the divorce papers were signed, his dad announced he was getting remarried. To a woman Daniel barely knew, but already hated. Not because she was mean to him, no. She was sugar-sweet on the surface. Too sweet, but Daniel knew. Deep down, he knew. She wasn't just his father's new love. She was the reason his mother's heart was broken. Fast forward to the wedding day. Picture this. The church smelled like roses. White ribbons on every pew, golden light streaming through stained glass. Guests whispering about how beautiful the bride looked in her lace gown. A string quartet playing softly, like background music in a movie. On the surface, it was perfect. Too perfect. And sitting in the middle of it all was Daniel, dressed in a stiff suit, tugging at his tie, fists balled so tight his nails dug into his palms. He didn't want to be there, but how could he not? It was his father's wedding. Everyone expected him to smile, clap, and play the role of the happy son. But the only thing he could picture was his mom at home, sitting alone on the couch, pretending the TV was enough company to drown out her sadness. And here's where it gets interesting. Ever noticed how weddings can feel fake sometimes? Like everyone's playing a part in a show? Daniel couldn't pretend anymore. And then came the moment. The priest's words hung in the air like a dare. If anyone objects to this union, speak now, or forever hold your peace. That line. The one nobody ever expects anyone to actually answer. The room went silent. All eyes were fixed on the couple at the altar, until a chair scraped against the floor. Daniel stood up. Imagine that. A 14-year-old boy, trembling but unshakable, staring at his father. His voice cracked at first, but it carried through the church. Dad, I can't sit here and watch this. She broke our family. She isn't who you think she is. The air shattered. You could hear the gasps, see the shock ripple through the room. The bride froze, her smile vanishing like a candle snuffed out. Guests whispered, eyes darting back and forth like they were suddenly in a courtroom, waiting for the verdict. Daniel's father turned pale, his jaw tightening, eyes burning with confusion and anger. And here's a thought. What would you do in that moment? Defend your bride or your child? The bride tried to laugh it off. He's just a kid, she said, her voice brittle. But Daniel didn't back down. No, I'm not just a kid. I saw the way you looked at him when Mom was still around. I heard the fights. I watched her cry every night because of you. His words cut deeper than any blade. The priest looked horrified. The guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Someone muttered, "This is a disaster." And Daniel's father? His fists were clenched at his sides, like he wanted to shout, but no words came. For the first time in a long time, the confident man everyone admired looked small, broken. The bride's mask cracked completely. She grabbed her bouquet, slammed it down, and stormed down the aisle, her veil trailing behind her like torn wings. The room erupted in whispers. Guests avoided eye contact with Daniel, as if truth was contagious. His father ran after her, leaving Daniel standing there alone. Alone, but strangely free. And just when he thought he'd ruined everything, he felt arms wrap around him. Soft, trembling arms. He turned, and there was his mother. She had slipped into the back of the church, unable to resist seeing what her son was going through. She whispered in his ear, "You did the right thing. Love isn't always silent. Sometimes, love means saying the words no one else will." Hi, those words. They were everything. Later that night, Daniel sat at home, staring at the clock, wondering if his dad would ever come back. Hours passed. Finally, the door creaked open. His father walked in, no tux, no bride, no smile. Just a broken man, shoulders heavy with the weight of choices he couldn't undo. He sat across from Daniel in silence. Minutes stretched. Finally, he whispered, "You're braver than I am." Turns out, deep down, his father already knew the truth. He just didn't want to face it. Isn't that funny? Sometimes adults run from reality while kids see it plain as day. The wedding was over. The bride never came back. But the real story wasn't the ruined ceremony. It was what came after. Rebuilding, healing, trusting again. For the first time in years, Daniel's father and mother sat in the same room. Not as a couple, but as parents who realized their son deserved better than secrets and lies. Now, here's the haunting question. Did Daniel save his father that day, or destroy him? Did his words prevent a mistake, or just carve a wound too deep to heal? Maybe both. Maybe that's what truth does. It breaks, but it also frees. Love isn't always soft. Sometimes it's sharp. Sometimes it feels like revenge. But in the end, maybe it's the only thing worth standing up for. And if this story hit you, wait until you hear the next one. She thought divorce was the end, but her revenge became the beginning of true love. Because heartbreak isn't always the ending. Sometimes it's just the messy, unforgettable beginning of something new.